to my podcast on my classroom management plan artifact here. So hopefully you've had a chance already to go over it to kind of get a feel for what I was going for with this letter, and to kind of get that big picture of what I'm looking at here. So I did write a letter to the parents, going through some of my educational philosophy, and my plan for having solid classroom management, good culturally responsive classroom management in my classroom. Um, and I want to say right off the bat that when you had told us about this project, I immediately had thought of a letter. I was really excited about it because for a long time I've thought about having a letter such as this, writing to the parents, purely because I really do think it's extremely important, as we discussed in class, to establish a connection with the other communities of which the students are a part. So, for example, their home life, or if they don't have a family, or if they're living in some kind of other situation, establishing a connection with those guardians that are in charge of the students' well-being, I think is paramount in having them have a successful, educational experience. Um, that's just it feeds into the providing a caring atmosphere, caring environment. It shows that you're interested in not only the student's education, well, not only the impartment of wisdom and knowledge onto the student, but also their education, forming them into a more complete human being, really a more complete citizen. And that's something you can see here in my definition of education. Saying that it's an essential form. It's not just the acquisition of knowledge, right? We're not just like shoveling knowledge into these students, but we're forming them into a more complete citizen and human being, really. Um, so all that being said, I just wanted to go through my letter a little bit. As you asked here, my intended audience was, of course, the parents. However, more than that, being the nature of a letter, I would need to give it to the students in order to give it to the parents, right? So the goal would be for the parent to go through this letter to get a solid understanding of my classroom management, and then if they had any questions, they could contact me. If the students had any questions, they can talk to their parents about it or their guardian about it, and then I can respond to that if need be. So that would be the intended audience. How I would introduce it to the parents. Well, of course, since it is a letter, it would be given to them. And I don't even think this is something that they would have to. Well, I guess they should sign it and give it back, right? Because then at that rate, I'm ensuring that the parents are actually taking a peek at it, assuming my parents or my students don't forge it. And then talking about some of the reasons that I think that this is a good idea. I kind of touched on that earlier, of why I like this letter format of connecting those two pieces, right? And this way, if the student ever mentions to the parent something strange that I do in my classroom, something I do that's atypical, the parent will have some kind of an idea of what I'm going for, right? I also have seen in my placement, and just throughout my life in general, that parents are extremely invested in their students, of course. And when they send their students to school, when they send their students anywhere, there's a hope that where they're sending these students is beneficial to them, that it's helping them, that it's forming them, and that the adults that are surrounding these students are going to be ones that are feeding into them positively. And I also know that there are times in which there are parents or guardians that feel that education is taking a turn in the wrong direction. They don't trust what teachers are doing. I've heard all the time saying they do this, they do that. That for example, they don't really teach students how to think. They just teach them what to think. They, and there's this almost ambiguity or anonymity around teachers, and I want to get rid of that. I want parents to be able to hear from me directly. So this is just one way I can do that. Other ways are contacting the parents if there's a behavioral issue, contacting the guardians if they're doing extremely well and they're exceeding in my classroom, or if I just saw them do something really nice for a friend. These are things that should be told to the parents because they might not know these things. They're students in a different context than they see them. So I think that's really important in establishing a connection between me and the parent. The final question here is asking, how do I intend to keep this plan relevant and useful throughout my teaching career? Well, I would definitely need to make adaptations to this as I continue through my career. Whether or not I learn things that were ineffective about it and switch them, or I learn new things that will be even more effective, I would love to add those to it. I did put a part here in the beginning where it was saying that I use literature, the most recent literature, to stay on top of my field. Current best practices, in world education right now, there's been a recent paradigm shift in going from grammar teaching to a focus on proficiency, right? A focus on verbal fluency. I'm sorry, not strictly speaking verbal fluency. There's four domains between speaking, reading, writing, and listening. So there's a shift in focusing on that rather than the grammar, and that's huge. And I think that I have seen that there are teachers that are not as on top of that shift as others. Um, so it's my intention to communicate with parents that, hey, I am committed to staying on top of this kind of thing, because simply because education in its essential form is the acquisition of knowledge, not that, but rather the formation of citizenship, humanity. So that's really my goal with this letter. Um, I hope that it satisfied your requirements, and more than that, I hope that, as you said here, that which I think is great, that it's more for us than it is for you. And I really, really do foresee myself using something like this in my classroom, um, of going through something like this with the students, of communicating, establishing that connection with the parents or guardians. I think it is paramount to having a solid educational experience. So, all in all, thank you for a great semester, Dr. P. I hope you're enjoying your trip, wherever you are right now. Good luck with grading all of these, but it really has been a pleasure. So, thank you for all you've done for us, and hopefully, I'll see you around. Take care.